Lawmakers on Capitol Hill aren't the only ones pushing for more information on UFOs. Any day now, we're going to learn more about how NASA plans to study them. The space agency held an historic public meeting back in May to discuss the results of its 9-month investigation. It plans to release the full report of its findings by the end of this month. The report will outline how to study UFOs using the technology and data that we already have. Joining us now is former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino. Good to have you here. He's also Columbia University professor and New York Times bestselling author. His new book, Moonshot, A NASA Astronaut's Guide to Achieving the Impossible, is available for pre-order. Now, did you bring my copy?
No, but I'll bring you one.
Okay.
It's not out yet.
I'm going to buy one.
That's very kind of you to plug it. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Good.
All right, so what you make of the hearings?
I thought it was interesting. I think the people are definitely interested in what's happening. It was a little disappointing with the big claims about the alien spaceship and so on. It would have been great to hear more if there was real evidence about that. But I think certainly looking at the UAPs that they call them now, the unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Did they just try and come up with something to make it sound
It's a little disappointing. UFO is a lot cooler, I think. You know, that would have been better. But I'm excited about the panel that NASA has put together and what they're going to show. That's a really good panel. One of my friends, Scott Kelly, one of my colleagues, my astronaut classmates, is part of that, as well as Matt Mountain, who is the director of the Space Telescope Science Institute for the Hubble data and the James Webb data coming down is handled by that institute. So these are some really highly qualified people that are looking at this.
NASA is putting its final touches on this report that it's going to release. We do know that of the 800 UFO or UAP sightings that NASA studied, around 5%, 2 to 5% remain unexplained.
Yeah.
So there is something.
Yeah, it is something. People are definitely seeing things, but it's very credible when some of our military pilots and people who are out there seeing these things and can photograph things and we're not really sure what they are certainly seeing things. Most of these things can be explained. 95 to 98% of them either is some sort of weather phenomenon or a balloon or a drone, which I think is important to understand that too, because there's things flying around our planet that we're not necessarily sure what it is. They could become a hazard for aircraft or for people in general. So I think it's a good idea to understand what those things are. Some of them are illusions, optical illusions. Happened to an astronaut friend of mine, thought he saw something and it wasn't. It could be explained just the way he was looking at things. Sometimes we see optical illusions. But as you said, Elizabeth, there's a 2 to 5% that could be really interesting because we don't know what they are. They can't be explained. But that doesn't mean, you know, it's necessarily ET coming to visit, but it is something that might be particularly interesting.
NASA has said to date it has found no credible evidence of any extraterrestrial life.
Yeah.
But I do ask, where is it looking? I mean,
yeah, that's part. You see, I do believe that there's life out there somewhere, and I think most people do.
It's hard to imagine that, you know, in the universe that we're trying to show
beautiful background
behind us.
There are billions of galaxies with billions of stars in each, most of which have multiple planets around them. There probably is something else out there. So what they've been looking for is signs of a planet or something that would be similar to what we know. So we're looking at things that we know about. We're looking for signs of water, of organic materials. We've talked about that. So that's what they're searching for.
But wait, they have. I can't come up with a fraction small enough to show the amount of the universe that NASA has studied.
That's right, because it's so immense, and so it's probably more likely if there's an advanced civilization somewhere. You know, there are stars around us that are billions of years older and billions of years younger. So if you look at the stars that are billions of years older, that means that if you think of life the way it formed here, they're a billion years ahead of us. They should figure out how to come visit. So I think that's more. That's probably what's going to happen. Is that if it's going to happen anytime soon, it's going to be some aliens who are much more advanced than we are, and there's no evidence that has happened yet. But it's an interesting proposition, and they're looking at it scientifically. I really am excited to see what that NASA panel is going to look at, because they're looking at things like that. What would be possible? Where should we be looking? How can we detect the technology we have now? We can identify things that we didn't know what they were. Flashes in the sky that we now know were sprites. They didn't know what they were. They saw these flashes in the sky years ago, and now we know that it's due to thunderstorm activity, electrical activity in the atmosphere.
Okay.
So we're learning more and more about these things.
We will have you back when the report comes out.
I can't wait to see what they come up with.
I can't wait to see what they come up with.
Hope we don't get disappointed.
Make
we're
sure that doesn't
something.
happen.
Yeah,
Mike,
we'll
astronaut Mike. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.